The Drukpa lineage and its holders in Ladakh, Zanskar, and other parts of Himalayas. The Hindu Zambala tropic of the Ganeshua in the music church of the Kaimare. The Inayang church on Savan and Java Merche, Ainas and some of the Kaisana, Himalaya, Yudi Nanglia. Rubegi church Kandes Tarbare, Sedu Zambala, Ani, Gavakoman number 2, Rudu Zambala, Kong number 2 in Zenam, the Shea Godu, Ani, Cheda Mandewaya, Maimbe on his Mendos and Sanchi, to Sangi.
Of this afternoon's talk is the development or the history of the Drukpa lineage in Ladakh, Sanskar, and other Himalayan regions. Now, of course, there is something to be said for that. Of course, it is good and beneficial to know about the previous masters of the past and how their lineages have evolved, particularly in these parts of the world. So this is what we will predominantly be going into. It is, however, not necessary to go into furthermore details of what Rinpoche has just been requested by way of the Umze reciting the words of for the benefit of all beings. Please deliver a teaching of the Dharma. So we will not go into any further details concerning these regards.
Shaki Gabu Shabla Chancellor, Badenji Demanchu Tamjiki, Chubenjibur Gurba, Chueki Gel, Tayanjola Pendejepa, Baden Drugeshavla Kubendu, Stende, Dadale, Seje, Anigawa Yongi, Niji, Chidu Dubengo, Ani Pacho, Chana Peme, Queen number Reba, Ani Balden Yanga Pachimbu.
Generally, when speaking of the one embodiment of the wisdom and compassion of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, speaking of the single embodiment that signifies all of that, the one who symbolizes this is none other but the great compassionate one, Arya Avalokiteshvara, or otherwise known in Tibetan as Chenrezig.
That dig number Dig Tulpa, Ani, Yawan Yanga Pachimbo, Yanga Person, Yanga Person, and Drukela Yanga Lagra, Dig, that's engine, and then Drubas and Druba. Now,
the very embodiment of this great compassionate man, Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig, is none other but the all-knowing, the omniscient Jalwang Drukpa.
Ani Hongi. Ani Tugi Shendula Yubanangsin, Kongi Tugin Dubala Yubanangsin, Maras Talendelia, Tungipalden Drubegi, Ani local Tenzum, Ting Tangbudi, Ani Nenga Chembuchi, Sinang.
And it has been the express wish from the bottom of the heart of the Jalwang Drukpa to be able to conduct a meeting such as this, an assembly such as this, and the fruition of that heartfelt wish of His Holiness the Jalwang Drukpa is this very first annual Drukpa Council, this assembly at which we find ourselves here at the present moment.
Ani Didabogi, Tugin Dubadi, Kangyalaya, Ani Kabji Kashure, Kamdurmuche, Jimmy Kamdurmuche, Ani Tagana, Sing Kongi, Ani Chak Shabji Shunge, Ani Manas Kembo Shedula. Ani Tagana Shingi, Kashure, Tungibandan Rubeki Chugars, Ani Tudasanga Chulingi, Ani Tungi Pembala.
Of course, this meeting has been made possible also through the help of many. First and foremost, through the tireless efforts of His Eminence Kamcho Rinpoche, who has also enlisted the valuable help of Khenpo Shedrup and also of the secretary from the Sangak Choling Monastery in Darjeeling, Lama Pemba.
Yeah, the seat of Drukpa Lineage. the seat of Drukpa lineage.
Which presently is the main seat, Sangak-Choling and Darjeeling being presently the main seat of the Drukpa lineage in exile.
아니 다간나 신기 ngazu Europe khuyegi kunduengi kusap ani Drukpa ngawala
Drukpa Ngawang?
No.
Europe.
Europe ki ani kusap Drukpa ngawala.
The representative of the Drukpa lineage in Europe is the master known as Drukpa Ngawang.
아니 다간나 신기 drukne phebegi ani volunteer ba jigi dalangjene ani chalenangengi ani nation phomo number 2.
And also, of course, there is a great number of volunteers who have come from all sorts of various places like Bhutan, etc., who make this very meeting, this very assembly possible.
아니 코나즈기 지기 궁에 켜두세 아니 지기 나와 당돌랑네 찰레tin데 제제니 제발 때니 아니 가라서 달린데리아 동기발된 주베기 로컬 현좀 탱 당부디 아니 지기 다시 때문에 야부시부시 속이 좀와디 아니 딘데지당 아니 데이터라 아니 데이터라 gemgur무치 슈마고바 아니 단데 광도 주변나 신기 하바제레스기 줄바레 아니 투덕추기 뉴베기 가서 그래 드바 투덕추기 뭐 야나 ჩვ거르무치 아니 대간나 신기 달래베데 가서 그래 캠베기 남조선에 민도 아니 지기 시랍기 남조 아니 지기 잠베 양기 드바 아니 갑자기 용주르무치기 단데 죽고 초주르무치 단다 가상 가라도디 렌좀 디토라 tinden nang ju yobada daga na shi ani gewa lore par soba gi tindegi ani tinden dang daga na shi ngarang tham daga na shi ji rune phebe gi ani loben number chore lama number chore daga na shi gi kembon number cho ani daga na shi ji ladare rune re ta choda ka mamoji ne phebe gi gindimber number cho daga na shi gi dide 대간나 신기 주만 남았죠. 신양 아니 샤룸네 페데베기 아니 덴든이 요메베 토네 페데베기 아니 주로 남았죠. 신양 아니 라다 상가르 가르샤 아니 가르슈레 덴종 룩 쿠놀서버 탐쟁하라서 델리아 현좀 딜레지기 토는 좀규 여버딜라 아니 가란치기 닝 타관에 가데 토스um 중간에 토마 참지기 뜻이 딜레스 주인스.
Not only are we fortunate enough to find ourselves in the presence of the very embodiment of the great compassionate one, Chenrezig, who is none other but Jamgon Rinpoche, whom we know under the name of the Jalwang Drukpa. We also are fortunate to find us in the presence of other great masters who are the emanations or who are the embodiments of the great bodhisattvas of Vajrapani and Manjushri. For instance, it is Jamgon Chögyam Rinpoche who is regarded as the emanation or the embodiment of all the power and the strength of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which is none other but the Bodhisattva Vajrapani, and Drukpa Yongdzin Rinpoche, who is among us, is regarded as the embodiment of the Bodhisattva that embodies all the wisdom and the knowledge of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which is none other but Arya Manjushri, or Jampayang as he is known in Tibetan. They, in their great kindness, together with the help of countless volunteers from all over the world, have made it possible that we are assembling here, that we have come here, and the sanghas and representatives of so many Drukpa lineage sanghas from all over, particularly the Himalayan regions, have assembled here from Ladakh, from Satskar, from Kasha, Kunu, from Sikkim, from Bhutan, etc., and so forth. Representatives from India and Nepal, and also students from all other sorts of countries from all over the world have come together here. This fills Rinpoche with great happiness. This is a source for great enjoyment, for great rejoicing, and himself having the possibility to also be here and attend this historic First Annual Drukpa Council fills him with great happiness. Therefore, from the bottom of Rinpoche's heart, a very heartfelt tashidelik, a very heartfelt welcome to everybody.
아니 다 달래 마시지당 ngarang ka kay yunde meba ji jangbe yunde yo mare kedub yunde yo mare sthebe ki shirab yo mare sambe shirab ka yo mare kai meba ki ji karshure kemi semen ma khallo kina zubedi ji karshure gendin number so sabar ki gendin number so deladun number so ya shesi den de yabudu san mindu di thora sabar to ngaran ji lengen sagi yona pen kangar pheyen thobi yona de tendency kai mindu de ine del ji ning thabane shago shi jeni ani ta del ka khamdrum ji kan nam ni shugi ma yas sunan ji mare sungu de de inde chama gongba na ma so ani ji dan rubbe ki temba Himalaya yaganal yobe ki Himalaya regional dalsu de ji rob jam jingarang la thongthü thongwa dang thöbadi dadu lol khog bindu tina ne sindi gebe irwa ani de je ma 강先生的什么学员，这样这个拉玛芒果鸡的，当根本芒果鸡的水果就咱们这果植物当产植物生呢，用给民族用给马来看，不能让人鸡怕果地水的要不用给马来吧，这因为刚用的什么水下的，这样的嘞，这个水稍微有点呢，样这土看出来，光大学员。
Now Rinpoche says of himself that he does not consider himself to have any particular qualities. He has no particular learning, he has no particularly great practice, he has not developed any particular great qualities along any of these lines. This is how Rinpoche would describe himself. However, it does not go to refuse the wish of someone as eminent as Kamta Rinpoche, who has very clearly and repeatedly requested Rinpoche to deliver a teaching, to deliver a talk here today.
So not requested, ordered.
Ordered, yeah. Okay, even worse. Who has ordered Say Rinpoche to deliver this teaching. So in the face of such an order, what to do? There is nothing to do but to come and to deliver this talk. Now, not having any particular practice or learning, it might be sufficient to give a short introduction about how the Drukpa lineage has evolved in the various Himalayan regions. Now, Rinpoche is fully aware of the fact that there are many learned and accomplished masters here, and then there are representatives from the various monasteries and various places in these regions who might even know much better about the history of these places. So whatever points might be unclear or whatever mistakes might creep into the presentation, Rinpoche asks your forbearance.
yana chuzingi masimnga la zogi yoda tinge tende shushing mindu ine da kang yon ro ka se yoji ma shu sha yin ba tadila nyame palden rube ki temba dini ani jegi sindengi jong shune mindu ani be gangjeng jong ne ani gyaga phagbe gi yul ani himalaya ji du jidar davet su di shuwala.
This talk is scheduled to last about approximately 2 hours. Now, some of that time has elapsed already, and it is not quite sure whether the remaining time will be sufficient to present all the various points. However, Rinpoche will try to the best of his ability to make the best possible use of what time is given us. Now, when speaking about the lineage as it has evolved, it is known that it took its beginning in the snowy country of Tibet, and that eventually it spread throughout the Himalayan regions of Ladakh, Sanskar, and so forth, all of these regions, and it eventually also found its way back again to India, to the very origin or source of the teaching.
Tadila jambel chawe giles sangye gi lungtemre riba sangye gi lungten nale ngani nyangen deo tu loni tongcha debeche sonam ningbo dini ni chime dusu jurwese khawa chenjong ji dendu hashang rigle rabjungwe gelong ishe doji yi mingjen daw to gyurne ni jigden dile yinjungne ningbo tonam hullangte kyo mindul ngilangu thani chalwe tonla shuk ngai temba geberche sen duse yugnane ani dus lungden yores.
The Buddha himself has prophesied in the text that is known as the Manjushri Mula Kalpa that about 1,000 years after his demise, his teaching will spread to the snowy countries, to the mountainous countries of the north. That will be due to the merits that has been accumulated by these beings there.
Ngani nyangende odi loni tongthan de se lo tongtha chis jula ani gonam sonam nyingbu sanju se sonam nyingbu shungen jese da ba tin di chime tu so maung be chena khawa chingi jong se ne ber lagra ta 하상 rig rab chung es hasang se ne gemi rig lagri gerik rab tu chung we ani gelong ise do jese ne dan jong chang ba jare chen ba.
He prophesied quite clearly that about 1,000 years after his death in the snowy country of Tibet, a master or a person of Chinese descent by name of Yeshe Dorje will appear, who in the snowy country of Tibet, for the sake of beings, will spread his doctrine. Such, in a nutshell, was the prophecy of the Buddha himself in the Manjushri Mula Kalpa.
The Gemi research some Gemi Rang in Gulmarda. Gemi Dang and Zoji, Gay Rik, you do with the Chinese descent. Descendant well, last. And I mean, Jenda to Junani, then Jiden de Lay June, Jiden Korwa de Lay June, and in Nibutanam, Tambeche, and Pulangne, and Kionam, Minjaki Wanda, Dojek Tilos of the Lamge, and Lamne, Lamlatene, and Kashure, Sanjaki Salo Guratang, and tiny child was an Umelam Lagara, Peter, and Shune, and I tell gave a cigarette and do some days.
And the Buddha then continued in his prophecy, saying that this person of Chinese descent, which does not mean to say that he was Chinese, but in his ancestry there was a Chinese person to be found, that he would spread the teachings and liberating instructions for the sake of beings, that he would teach the noble, intermediate or middle way for the sake of beings, and that in this way, through this person who will be named Yeshe Dorje, the doctrine of the Buddha would be greatly disseminated in the snowland of Tibet.
Tatiga Nasin, long time Nasin, Ani Namden Shiba to Masaki Tuberwa, Namden Shibegi, Ani, Temat Zimberche Begi, Ani, Temat Zimbercheba, Chewatama was Shubeki Nangne, and it's Zugin Runasin, Hidrup Yasuina, and a Yasenki doctor, and number Toa, and Palden Drupa, Tomandroengo, but Samba Gere, Dingi, Ani, Zigi, Chigdong Chigia. Tuju Rejik, Jamu Drigi Lola, Ani, Högi Sajegi Ming, Zhang Nyangtu, Kulechar Sasadela, Kulechar, Chungsegi Lumbeg Mingre. Dela, Ani, Yap Yasurbo Tawase, Singandidang, Yum Marsangigi, Nila, and said Dunjumares, Dinane, and Chungshusu, Gotroimbre.
Yap Surpo.
Yes, Jasurpo Tawase. Tawase. Yum Marsa. Nila said Dunjumara. Dinang and Chungshu de Kutuan.
This person who was known as Yeshe Dorje, who is none other but the protector of beings, Tsangpajare, he would, so it is prophesied, disseminate the teaching, the doctrine of the Buddha. He would spread all the liberating instructions, etc., for the sake of beings. And it came to pass, according to the Buddha's prediction, that then eventually in the that in the year it came to pass that in the female snake year by Tibetan reckoning, which is the year 1161, that Drogin Tsangpajara, as he was to become known later, was born as the youngest of 7 children to his father Jasurpu Tsawase and his mother Maza. Maza, right?
Marsa. That the Yavumi the Drukpa Imbare moment. Drukpa Imbare.
These parents of his, they were nomadic people. They had no fixed abode.
And in Drukpa Indu Chambala, Quran Sugi, cattle Yorwa, Dundu Yorwa, Tinzu, and Yala Sobadan, Jil Sobadan, Luso, Yama Tinzu, Sai Sangin, Teniki Bogu. This is a Jil, then it's a Zodurva, and it's a Yasal Paki, but in this Dropas in this Cape Odurva, Tindregi, Cape Capchila, and Shudele Yum Chipur Hawaii, Kurangi Amachipur Hawaii.
The family of Tsangpajara, they were nomads, they had no fixed abode, and they had a lot of cattle to take care of. They were in the possession of yaks and goats and all sorts of other animals, and they were constantly on the move for different grazing grounds for these animals. So there was not any particular place where they would stay for any fixed duration of time.
Tini dindegi kiepo kapchidan tu jeni ani yum de Quran chibu le yorba tundu shasa gi le sina tundu chuksa tini nam ha de sama dela ani Quran kasa dongin gere ku thumai bare thumai kapsu droba sina he was covered with some kind of a pakpata skin tini do ji le thumbare thundu sambala ani Amadi Shebre, Yum Shebre, that in the Karinam daughter in Dujashvijina Karina San Sheni, Tagaran Yusha and Sutuyum Islam.
When Drogin Tsangpajara was then finally born, he was not born in quite an ordinary way. He was rather born encased in a membrane of skin, one could say. In this way, the newborn child had a rather unusual look, and his mother, having just given born to this thing, so to speak, which was not easily recognizable as a normal child, was greatly embarrassed, and she thought that this was a sign of a great obstacle. So therefore she abandoned the child in a place where one usually would stable animals, and she tried to not to let it be known that she had given birth to a child in this very strange, in this very unusual way.
Ani only the Quran kumji chewa yorwa, India chewa la shebre, that the little chunks of Karina and she was share something at and Joy wins and the case of the Paseo Shedu Sama, Ani Quran kumji chewa di Lamsang Yuchin Tagachimba elaborate. Taga drove a capsule, Chagu yorwa, vulture, Chigi, Ni Quran Goma did this ordination company, they are less.
Now his elder brothers, who had already grown up quite a bit, they of course had known of their mother having been pregnant and having recently given birth, and they were wondering where would the young child be. So they started to search for him, and eventually they came upon the place where his mother had left him, where she had abandoned this strange creature encased in this membrane of skin, which looked rather more than an egg than a normal baby, and they found a vulture sitting over this newborn child, obviously guarding it.
다 Quran kumji Quran kumji chewa parle bata ani jagu di pursumore jagu di pursumore kapso jagu gi dis soebal tani ani di pakpata with the rani ani kiu yido mochi dinal tembares.
When the elder brothers of Tsangpajara then eventually came closer, the vulture took flight, flew away, and they then finally came upon the newborn child, which heretofore had thus been guarded by the vulture.
지르점바 아니 텐데디 월처럼 야나 자구디 아니 두chen 야가기 두chen 제주나네 두chen 라와바기 아니 투베레스 앤 루시온다스 투스타리오레스.
It was said subsequently that this vulture which guarded the newborn child was an emanation of the Indian Mahasiddha Lawapa, who was one of the 84 famous Indian Mahasiddhas.
디네 좀발라 모처럼 때 개발 젠트리젠 구총 봐. 아니 디네 구르르무치암 테마삼바웨 룽템바나신 사랄 셰베 룽숨돌 누르분집에 주반중 아니 파봉션데 칸에 최제 좀 수송하나 신제니 아니 가사 집에 충을 갑라양 알아서 보고 충중 있는 제모 제양 알아 등산 보고 더 있는 남산 맨다당 지금 천재를 가고 제야 두아 그런 행기 알아서 보고 된주 보고 좀 they like to have to try of like a guns or knife and so on and during with their playmates also they play with other sorts of things right 다 이나양 동은 결에디 딘데 마임바 아니 지기 가두에 있는 얘가 아니 최체백이 줄나야 딘데 로마 심바된 줄 로마 나시 마샤 그런 강라슈 딘데 최체야로서 뭐 딘데기 아니 지기 가서 기부사면 기부담백이 강수단데 집에 중을간에 딘데 용기열에 아니 니마지 포봉션다스네 포봉 두시지 강라 아니 최는 배바삼바베 롱데만 나신 딘데 최낭베 갑지라 마파두자마 디디기 디담나 도지열에스 도디 강나 샵기 제 imprint of his feet but sever ani koini dine thoya yoba dine jumbo rest in songjas
the
gurumuchi lungden saral sibe lungsumdor saral siya lungbek dola lumbasum yesra din dola ani nurbunjimbe tuba jungsanda gyabjoma gyarel sum yorba digita pobongshon de kane cheche som stile sunga nasi ani jibe tune ini tindegi ani
It appears then that, or it turns out rather, that the birth of Drukpa Sangpajara has already been prophesied by Guru Rinpoche, by Guru Padmasambhava himself, in one of the many prophecies that he has left us, including the circumstances of the birth, etc. Now, usually it is the case that young children, particularly boys, like to play with all sorts of toys like guns or knives or bows and arrows or what have you. But Sangpajara was completely different. When he played at being a Dharma teacher. He played at giving empowerments, at giving teachings and the like. So in this way, already in his youngest years, he behaved rather more like a lama than like an ordinary child. And eventually, in the course of his playing in this way, it once also came to pass that on the stone or on the rock on which he was sitting, he left a very clear and visible imprint of his foot, which was clearly visible for all.
아니 디네 코랑게 kumchi chewa 젬보르와 kumchi chewa 첸라 갈덴 싱엔 중엔디기 갈덴 슝엔디기 아니 쿨룽세세기 룽발라 로벤 칼룽바 싱엔 주요 이메레 칼룽바
공부도 참고적으로 공부를 제갑서
말에 공부 계속 가면
There's a burden. When the future Sangpajara, of course he was not known under that name yet, had become a couple of years older, one of his older brothers by name of Kalden took him to an area, to a region that was known as Kulung. In this place named Kulung, there was a master by name of Karlungpa. And under this Karlungpa, the future Sangpajara studied for 8 years, predominantly such subjects as reading and writing, spelling. He studied astrology under this master Karlungpa, and he also studied Tsema, what is known as in Sanskrit as prasangika, so various intellectual and scriptural studies. So for 8 years he studied under this master named Karlungpa in Kulung.
아니 드네 공론 이슈 짱이를 패바다 아니 나부 세셀 패니 아니 코랑게 자벨라마와 도행고 불링신제바 잘 아니 공군드네 지게 민제기 왕 로제기 틸소베 당가 말루베 슈네 아니 체니 이셰도제스
I forgot to say before that this master Karlungpa gave the future Sangpajara the name Sherab Yeshe Dutsikolo. This was a name until he was known, until he eventually received a new name from his main teacher, whom he was to meet when he was about 22 years old in a place called Napu. His main teacher, of course, was none other but the great Lingchen Repa, from whom the future Sangpajara was then to receive many transmissions, empowerments, liberating instructions, oral transmissions, and he was eventually given the name under which he is known until the present day. He was given the name of Yeshe Dorje from Lingchen Repa.
On the age of 22.
Age of 22. Didn't I say that? At the age of 22 he went to Napu and met Lingchen Repa.
Tatine Niger Kunduna, that one lung that the Masma Toba, Tinitila, Lunga, but the Chayer Shune, and it was ever. Yamsalaw, that in Toba, Yamso, Longa Langne, Langalatani, and Lungchinang Seneva. Lungchinang Senevata, and it's Sigba your wall, Sigba Santel don't Nebata. And it's Jumala Wang Toba to that, Milanasing.
Having stayed in the presence of Lingchen Repa for the duration of 5 years, he continued to receive empowerments, teachings, and he put them into practice very thoroughly, very efficiently, until he, after the short duration of only 5 years, he achieved the full accomplishment of these practices. For him, what is called mind and wind or subtle energies became of the same nature, and the elements held no sway over him anymore, held no influence over him anymore. He could freely pass through walls or rocks, he could see through them. In this way he achieved great accomplishment, just as before him the great master Milarepa had demonstrated.
That in the Imere, that is some Jackares, she in a page, Kazan, Kangurum Chika, Nawana, Shingi, Maransogi, Demerzim, Zimba Yorba, Demerzim, Zimbati, Shik, Zambala, Ani, Maransogi Chigi, and Nawandi that Hamja, Ani, don't buy you the child of Zambala, that in Degi, Zibala Soba Tose, but the Tome to 10, but Tome Yoba says, Tose 10 of Soba Tendigani, Yoba.
This is exactly what His Holiness the Jalban Drukpa was referring to the other day when he was talking about how we, in our confused, unenlightened mind, hold on to conventional reality, holding things to be true, holding things to be real, which in the end essentially are not. Once one has overcome that clinging to the conventional reality, then once one has fully overcome it, then one will be able to display the same miraculous abilities. One will be able to display the same realizations as Tsangpajara in this case, like being able to pass through rocks and walls, etc., and being not under the influence of what seems to be the elements to us.
Tadine, any Gonglu Nishu, Subshila Pebelola, any Korang Lama, Tadaling Lung Temanasin, any Karchusel, Sura Karchusel Penny, any Ronyam Gitambatella to Mingres.
When Tsangpajara then eventually had reached his 24th year, it was prophesied to him by Lingchen Repa that if he were to go to a place that is known as Lodrak Karchu, that he would there discover the teachings of equal taste as they're known.
Ronyam Slusamba Yanti, around Chile sense Mevachavi, Armuda Kumuda, Traka, Mevachavi, the Pemuchaya, but the Negajamarta. Ranzunang Zimba, Zimba, didn't Ditabu, Zimbati, and she becapsu, and Tamjet, Karshure, Moyachane, and Chiktu, topic is.
When speaking about the teachings of equal taste, we're not talking about taste in the conventional sense, like tasting something that might be sweet or something that might be sour or agreeable or disagreeable to our taste buds. What is rather more referred to here with equal taste is the equal nature of all appearances and phenomena by way of being of the one and same very of the very same essence, not being essentially different in any which way.
Tene lo tagarang la yan dongol reg lung temba na singi ani kurang gitar gumbatab gures densatab gures sunga tene ani ralungi densatab re densa yashi se gore tina na tambo ralungi densatab res lung temba na singi.
Furthermore, Lingchen Repa also prophesied that then eventually the time would come for Tsangpajara to establish his own seat. And accordingly, he then established the seat which became to be known as the great monastery of Lahaul.
Tene tade Singlang Lola ani tanda ngraske sia jiwa jige nam drugi desata be kapsu ani drug mabugu ani namkal purni duda dabolen sumire kare gure chiktamni ani namkal purndo zini ani ditemde do sikchene ani 가르치고 그래. 그걸 뒤에 라면 롱땡이 말이다. 라마 망고치 롱땡 샤다. 조링 챤데 봐봐. 되는 뒤에 롱 때문에 신체에 아니 drukmabu khawatab ko sidu chambala to da tandar lungi den sa yosa tene nam drukmabu go da khase nal drukmabu go nam kar phurware se sungsha khase nal ni drukda len sumje kare gure chik dirre se soya du da kandar ine mene drukda diryo sare da tinde chen ko druk phurwal chasha da din chen phurwal tene ani dela ya gombatab sa ya bure sha sam bongni ani dela desa tam da nam druk se adi tine chumbores
남쪽 라롱 다 사자카가 After having established his main seat as Ralung, he then proceeded to establish another seat at another site, which came together in this way that when he came upon this site, he had the vision, or he beheld with his actual eyes 9 dragons rearing up in the sky, roaring their thunderous dragon sound. Now there's a whole lot of different stories about how this in particular came about. There are such stories which say that these dragons soared right into the skies. Other stories say that they roared 3 times. However that might be, we will not know. But this is the basic story, this is the basic idea that he beheld these dragons roaring up into the sky and soaring into the sky. And he considered this to be a very auspicious event, a very auspicious sign, and accordingly at this particular place he established his second seat, which then became known as the monastery of Namdruk.
Di jigdong yenge lola chatam naure chatam nangsha jigdong yenge lola
Nibja
nga
the Namdruk monastery was in particular established in the year 1205.
No. Tandin room said the Kashaki Yoresia, Kasa Chugum Chikso, Nashin, Kashaki Yoresia, Kashaki Yomaresia, Kashaki Chignara Yoresia, Kashaki Chik Dodo Yoresia, with the Kajamangudua. That didn't convince you, Hakumason. Then the Ganashin, Drugi Kato, Chikabu, Yovina, Yovina, Kandayunaya. That the guy do the Nathan Drew, Naranzuki, Miki Matona, Yomaris, Lavek, Dimarva, Naranzuki Matoma Manguji or Matoma Manguji or Diomaris and Dimarva. Tanepana, America, Yes, Washington, Tonga Mare, the Chilanzo, the Nikashis, Yomartin, Yomarzang, Thomas, Labet, never drew Marva. The day is Zambala, Tonga, Tongiore, and they Tona Yovaimberva, Sutona Yovaimber. That low shade of Tonania, Karamadochi, that they give Tambay, see Mamacabla, and then you get it. I doomed the Senate, Mabudu Taine, Narapinga, the Chang Nachutibani, petting Konazu Sunet in the Drew, the Namkal Purdong, and the Tonsons, helicopter Nashi, Pabiong dos. What did shake do? The day in the Zamba Pesi, you have the letter, the day in the Zamba Dinesia. Well, talking about dragon.
The dragon in the song. Yeah. That was a whole lot in a very short time. Let me try to keep track. Chogyam Rinpoche, a couple of days ago, has already spoken about dragons, and he has also spoken about how one could, with all sorts of reason, doubt the presence of dragons, whether there are dragons or not in this world, whether they truly exist or not. It's not a matter that we can fully fathom. It's not a matter that we could fully establish. However that might be, we should always take into account that there definitely is a lot more out there in this world that we cannot necessarily perceive with our senses, with our eyes, yet we still know of the existence of such phenomena. Just take an example, if you were to think of any particular place somewhere in the United States of America, you might only have heard of it, you have not seen it with your eyes. However, you would not necessarily doubt its existence. Now, this is the same way in which we could possibly treat the phenomena of dragons. Whether they be there or not will remain an open question, so to speak.
Yeah. So as people has been up to the other spaces, isn't it? Like on moon, let's say. People has been up there, but the rest of most of the majority of the human being on this earth hasn't been up there. But due to their vision, whatsoever they have said, we do believe so. So therefore, it is very difficult to say that if you give the how to say, a reason saying that it does not exist because I didn't see, I don't think that is a very good evidence. What I mean to say, what I wanted to say is that. And then, Lama Shang Rinpoche, Lama Shang Rinpoche is the Korangi Nimber Josade.
Shangzaba.
Shang Rinpoche, Lama Shang Rinpoche, Kundine, Korangi Nimber Jopore, Gilongi Dobashiva, Digi Lung Tembanasi, Annie, Longdul Gumbatavares. Longdul say, Longdul say.
So then eventually, the young Tsangpajari went into the presence of a master that is known as Lama Shang, or Shang Rinpoche. And from him he received monastic ordination. From him he received the various vows or commitments of individual liberation.
Lama Shang Rinpoche, the Karsa. Doing Mutsamba Jareta, Lama Shang Rinpoche Majengola, Dugun Kyobar Muchi Kundil Pet, we are the young tempted with Mandi Vichani, and the Chungmindoa, Dugun Kyoba, Kundil Pelaka, attended with Mandich and Chungmindo, Jula del Latak, and Diani Lama Shang Rinpoche Kundil Penny, and in Yenzo to Uta Tsupite, Narupagi Tsupiting, I think I'm in the Yogi Maris and Kong to Nayet Wiki and the Shibo to Governor Rest and the Sungdua. Koran Jugun Kyoba Kundin Pevere. Jugun Kyoba Kunsam Shuvekabina, Tinijil Kenny, Jetu Yamare. Tini Lama Shang Rinpoche Pet. I didn't see Luki in Buya, Lama Shang Rinpoche Lama Shang Rinpoche Penny, Nimber Zodisama, Utazugutugra. And Lama Shang Rinpoche was very proud. Then they said, Naruba, Utaching, and Amando Yamares.
It then goes on to say that Tsangpajari proceeded to go into the presence of the great and famous Drigong Joba, Jigten Sumgen, who happened to be the founder of the Drigong Kagyu tradition. However, Drigong Joba at the time was in closed retreat, so at this particular time Tsangpajari was not able to see Drigong Joba, so he eventually returned to Lama Shang, who then proceeded to perform the hair cutting ceremony and all the rituals which go along with that. And this was a source of great pride to Lama Shang, because he then used to say afterwards, I had the great opportunity to perform the hair cutting for none other but Naropa himself.
Tatine ani kasa yamro taglung seala sesa sajatela ani densa shiba chuzong seng tabare. Tadila rube densa yashi segores.
Sajak ning taglung.
Taglung. La ani
densa ning
chuzong.
Densa shiba.
Shiba.
Somebody can do that. Ralung
Namdruk teni longdul.
Oh, longdul tang de dangan jesong. Longdul. I forgot to say before that while going into the presence of Lama Shang, eventually a third residence by name of Longdol was established by Tsangpajari, and then later in the course of his travels, a fourth residence by name of Chözong was eventually established. So these are the four original seats of the lineage, so to speak, these four having been established by Tsangpajari himself. It is said eventually that when Tsangpajari started to assemble students around himself, that his students eventually numbered 50,000.
Categorized.
All of these students received empowerment, oral transmission, and instruction from Tsangpajari. And it is said that these students could be subdivided into three major categories. There were the best, the most eminent students, there were the intermediate ones, and there were the inferior ones.
Tina Loma rap ding Tasum Geneta, rap the Tamara. Tina rap Namgi and it Jalunia, Kashi Jalunia. And Kashegi, Tadina Sungsha, Ting Ha, O Lu, Tini Parminji, then the Tamjel Cabne, and it's and Dubeki Tempatiris Cabaret.
From among these students who achieved great accomplishment, the best ones among them eventually demonstrated the achievement of the rainbow body. And many of them were able to benefit beings in the various realms, not only in the human realms, but they were also able to benefit beings in the god realms, as well as beings in the naga realms and the subterranean realms, so to speak.
아니 딩남기로와 딩남기장 되네 우경기율 샴발라 대가나신 싱갈라 대가나신 serling 상링로 소보다 지기 대다 탐제 캬미 아니 드루베기 때마다 배워 임레스.
These were the students of the highest capacity. The students of middling capacity were still able to bring about such feats as traveling to such sacred lands as Urjin, as Udyana, as Shambhala, as Javadvipa, Serling, and such places. They had the ability to miraculously travel and traverse these places. However, where exactly all of these places are is undecided, and Rinpoche says certainly he himself has no particular knowledge as to really put the finger on the map and to say these places are here and there and there.
Jalandhara sana tanda Himachal nang lima Himachal rival. Te karsa tanda kono geology segre. Tanda kyabji khamdur muche kutin geba kutin goma dongi nima gi tin delungun nang gi yores telesuta pejiti ingire ba. Tini oda di Jalandhara sana Himachal di nga ha ko yo kawale sana zu tugire ba. Da dine ani Himalaya review ne ge che ni ani gyana bardu. Da gyana sana samay ha ko ba gyana gi sansam bardu ani Drukpa temba kepe jumbares. Jalandhara tadini Himalaya changma. Jalandhara from Jalandhara to Chinese, how to say, land. Did samadini Drukpa temba kepe.
The
Tamanam.
So those who were able to travel to these sacred spots were of the middling quality, the intermediate quality, and even those who were of the inferior quality, of inferior capacities among the students of Tsangpajara, they still were able to travel to such places as, for instance, Jalandhara, which is a region that extends from the region of Himachal Pradesh to the Chinese lands or the Chinese borders, Tibetan borders, for that matter, and they were able to populate this region, this area, with a lot of accomplished practitioners.
Tadine Hindu Zambala, Sigi, that do Kabi, Karsan, judgment of Rava, the Palden Drubeki Temba Dingi, Tachiki, Sajik Taner, young Ringtun of Jabaina, Tini Chago, Chago, Yorba, Chago, Walcher, Tabo Purnichina, Tini Ninsen Chobye Sala, Ninsen Chobye Sala, left to Yagatigatsi Sala, Ani Drubetama Cabaret, and Tigam Chumbares.
It is said that at this time these regions were populated with learned and accomplished masters, according to that tradition, for a distance as far as the vulture flies for 18 days. They've
already told this? 아니 유전 될 때니 아니 내가 나신기 지금 미모르기 체체한다고 제가 이나양 되니 미체 룩체 장보 장체 두덥세야기 아니 지기 딘데기 지기 말아서 주셔야 돼요. 이것들이 종이면라스.
At this particular time and at this particular place, the well-known saying or proverb was coined that half the people are Drukpas, half of the Drukpas are begging mendicants, and half of these mendicant beggars are Mahasiddhas, or greatly accomplished practitioners. It was this time in which this saying was coined, was phrased.
Tadi kintu sambal ngarangi samsure ngarangi tokje de chebara mi chega druba res chena de tes devramin do ange semen nal chena chige ngaransu gi bög nang pasangge pa gi che nyamsul langen di chega pe druba res chena tes devramin ro samsam do samgidu.
However, if one were to look at it dispassionately, one could say that to claim that half the people of Tibet, for that matter, who had adopted the teaching of the Buddha were Drukpas, well, this may just be a little bit pretentious.
Ta dinde di kap dile dinde imare ta dande chane ngone jigda kyangrum chegi ta thuje karin ten sene mindu khandar jigda charnu gi ru tham jelang ran su dube te ma khyap du sambala halam halam mi chin dubas lam ne digi me do sam gi do de ine yang di jema ni di kandri na hago masong mi chega di drupa chagi du de ine wa mi chega di drupa chagi de drupa chega di trangbo ina me na hago masong trangbo chega drudo yimba de dile kyang dende rami dus.
It is also not quite possible whether the other points could actually be substantiated, even though through the great efforts of such great masters as the Jalwang Drukpa and many others, the teaching of the Drukpa lineage has been disseminated widely to many different countries, to many different kinds of peoples. Still, one could not really for sure say that, well, half the people are Drukpas and half of them are begging mendicants. There's no way how that could be substantiated. And to claim that half of these again are Mahasiddhas will also, in all likelihood, be rather difficult to prove.
We should put effort to.
However, to make these prophetic works come true, it is basically up to ourselves to make an effort. It is also, however, not necessary that we adopt the lifestyle of begging mendicants. However, if we could manage to become Mahasiddhas, that would be very beneficial. So from his 31st until his 51st years, for these 20 years, Tsangpachari immersed himself in the activities of a Mahasiddha. He further established the seats of Namdruk, etc., and he acted for the benefit of beings in that time, for that duration.
Kulong raba khaza ke chungurum chegi kulong kor sungsonga oda tindregi kulong di ani kulong zamma imba ani kunju layang tindregi tini nyamne nang wala teni ani di ra shugure melam thara dubegi tala ani gomba zon nikyang ani thuk ja chen la soba shabare mel si ona.
When then eventually the time had come for Tsangpachari to expire, to pass away, he did not pass away in any which way in which an ordinary being like us would do so. When we pass away, for the most part, there will be nothing left but an ordinary corpse, a couple of possessions, and that will be that. However, since Tsangpachari was...
Or a stinky corpse.
Yeah, a rather smelly corpse for that matter. Yeah, that's in all likelihood what will be left of us eventually. However, in Tsangpajare's case, that was not the case at all. Due to his all-encompassing motivation for the sake of all beings, and we have already heard about motivation from Chapje Chogyam Rinpoche day before yesterday, I believe, he made a prayer that for the benefit of beings, for the benefit of future generations of students, etc., that objects for veneration and of inspiration may be left behind. And it came to pass eventually, after then he had passed away, that his heart, his tongue, his eyes, etc., remained, that they were not destroyed, that they did not decompose.
아니 대자면 말에 아니 우토라 직순공복이 아니 랑전 그봐 아니 꾸이지만 이슈자지라 가장 그럼 제 송송아 제가 나신 게 꾸이지만 이슈자지라 아니 제레시 이슈자지기 랑전 근데 좀 그래 되겠지라 하
There were further miraculous occurrences which expressed themselves in the experience of various shapes on his remains. For instance, on his skull there appeared miraculously the shapes of the three types of protectors, which are Chenrezi, Manjushri, and Vajrapani. On the bones of his spine, 21 small shapes of the Great Compassionate One in the form of Chenrezi of Kasarpani appeared, and there were many other such miraculous signs.
Loya Guru Yongi Mares Tachi Chigures, and the Gosong, if I'm not wrong. Chimani Julo, you have in its Oji. Chapter on Namgil, Perne Pedro, Nam Pedro, Nampevachi.
Of these precious relics, the main ones, these Chenrezi shapes, these Avalokiteshvara Kasapani shapes, which grew from the bones of the spine of Tsangpajare, the major part were eventually taken by Shabdrung Ngawang Namgyal to Tibet, and they're now to Bhutan, and they are now kept in the fortress of Punakha Dzong. And it is said that occasionally these relics change their color, and according to whatever color these relics take on, it is then predicted whether the coming year will be a good one, will be a fortuitous, will be a fruitful one or not. Such is the story. Another one of these is kept in the possession of the other Chogyam Rinpoche, of Chogyam Chochi Sengye, who keeps that particular relic in his residence.
아니 대가나 신직 패징 알아서 drupe densa sanga chuni la 패지 군둥 차래 요도 하고 요래 삼삼도 쟁도 요래 요래.
And then it's just been confirmed, yet another one of these is being kept in the seat of the Drukpa lineage in exile in the monastery of Sangak Choling in Darjeeling. A further one is being kept at the residence of Se Rinpoche himself in Kunumanali, and that one does not appear in the shape of a Avalokiteshvara Kasarpani, but rather more in the shape of Chenrezi with 1,000 arms and 1,000 faces.
The Inayanti, Nala Lava Samado, Nemare, and Razor to what Chigdam, the Remado Chilla, Adam Christian, Daughter Yakamare, Razamaki Chache, Vesugivare, Chebapu Vesugivare, Madocella, Adam Christ, Daughter Getayamara, Dancing Bang, Yat, the names of an incident.
However, Rinpoche would like to make it very clear at this point that he does not consider this relic to be his personal possession. He is the keeper of it for the time being, but this precious relic belongs to all of us Drukpas. All of us can pray to it, can venerate it, can present offerings to it. To present this as his personal possession in the face of all of that talk about giving up ego clinging would be preposterous, of course, that goes without saying.
Wada kangdar ditabugi ani kibutamba tengi ignema gibati gibega ransogi gibatela chugitila tungi palden Drukpa sayatang ani tenyam solengen tedala ani Drukpa seming thoyati pejitine jongote pejimare tegarani jongores.
So when we look at the origin of this particular lineage, at the origin of how it came to be called the Drukpa lineage, how all of these facts, all of these points and features came into being, this would serve as a short but rather accurate presentation.
Tatine tatapena Druk dabuchi nayang nyama menyul se man Druk se yo mare tini jing royang ko shabdung awang namgel kunjeng gi yangsi shabdung awang namgel Druk la phebni ngaran su gi chen Drukpa ka gi chegyu di yul tel tarabal teni chiming yul la thoni Drukpa sen Druk yul sen ning thoba tini res se gi do ina mena rebena nyama menyul se man Druk yul se marwa ni shabdung awang namgel pha pheb tini ngaran su gi chegyu di pha yul tel tarabal teni ani yu de gi mingla ya Druk seming ta Bhutan se kawani ta ina ha ma song.
As of the time of Shabdung Ngawang Namgyal, who then strengthened and further established the Drukpa lineage in the country that nowadays we know as Bhutan, which in Tibetan is known as Drukyul, the land of the dragon. As of that time, because of his influence and of his further establishing the Drukpa lineage there, the country then also eventually came to be called Druk or Drukyul. So this directly refers to the influence of the Drukpa lineage in this country. Now, where the other name under which we know it nowadays, Bhutan, comes from, that is a rather more open question.
Tatine tine chuji gyare tidische ani chuji gyare gi loma chumbare tangbur chewa pagyang pardu chewa gendre ni thamar chewa logyo ni senta lomi gi chowon de Druk chungare ba ta pariwa ani kyamo thangpa kyamo na didu
Slaso
jayakpa Dremopa tini gewa lore tang gewa gosangpa
lore gotsang
tini lome to chowon de tin chungai bare.
Among the great number of students of Tsangpa, one can say that there were 6 main students. Their names were Bariwa, Genmowa, Jayakpa, Dremopa, and then there were Jawa Lorepa and Jawa Gotsangpa. Furthermore, it is said that those among his students who would merit an umbrella as a sign of their accomplishment, there were 2,800 of these.
ko palden gosang pas chenita sundu sambata tindu sama rodin kyang yor ta tane kapsu baba Himalaya gi tanda nge subject ta thuni ta Himalaya gi regional ta sudi gyawa gosang pani mata drog yo imare tinde indu sambala oda di gyawa gosang pal tinde sumbares ngai lama ba lingre ins
ngai lama doji chang
lingre ngai lama sangye ngue ani ko palden ko palden gosang pas chene gi gosang pal gi sung yo res
loma sanjing
res
from the mouth of Tsangpa himself comes the following quote or quotation in which he says, "My teacher, who was like the Buddha Vajradhara, like Dorje Chang, he was none other but Lingchen Repa or Lingje Repa. The one among my students who is like the Buddha is none other but Jawa Gotsangpa." And indeed, through Gotsangpa, who was one of the close students of Tsangpa Jarepa, then all of the further lineages in the various Himalayan regions